I will save more for once the show starts. You're in Amsterdam today, right?
I am, yes,
It's,
yes. I'm
I love.
working for a few days in Amsterdam before I go back to Portugal.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I was in the Netherlands last summer, and I was like,
Yeah.
I would like to move here. I loved Utrecht. Like, I thought that was.
Utrecht is nice.
Oh my
It's
gosh, it
so
was just.
nice.
We were only there a couple days, but I was like, I could move here tomorrow. I
It's my
like
favorite
it's.
city.
Is it okay? So
Yeah.
I am not surprised. It was like all the charm of Amsterdam, but no American tourists. I was traveling there with an expat friend of mine, so I'm looking
Mm.
for my sweater. Yeah,
Well,
and
we're
it was.
live. We've got
We're
people already
live.
rolling in,
Hi,
and
everybody.
welcome everybody. Welcome. Uh, this is the
I'm
Daily
doing.
Whatever from Gen Xe. I am Lawrence Winterman, one of your hosts. My lovely co-host Dana Dubois is getting
Hello.
ready in Seattle, where it is still only 7:04 a.m. in the morning.
It is a confession, y'all. I'm not feeling my best today, so
Uh-oh.
I know my throat is sore, and I was actually thinking about that when we started this, Lawrence. And I was like, we're gonna get ill, so,
Right,
some of the time,
right,
and
right.
can I
It's bound to
rally
happen.
and just be there because all I have to do is sit on this couch and say, Lawrence, take the lead.
Well, we have an incredibly special guest today, everybody. So Füsun Aydın,
Yeah.
Aiden,
I don't.
Aydın,
Aiden.
is an amazing, amazing writer. Dana and I both found her relatively early in our tenure on Substack, and I am always blown away by her essays. So Füsun is Turkish. She's a trans woman. She's a writer. She's a sex worker. She's currently visiting Amsterdam, where she did live, I think, for several years
10
before
years.
recently relocating to Portugal. So congratulations on the big move.
Thank you. Thank you.
I
It's
Yep.
two different worlds completely.
Yes, different worlds, and at least from what I see on Substack, Fusan, you seem so much happier in Portugal. The
Yeah.
the images of you on the beach always make me so happy.
Yeah. I'm tenfold happier in Portugal um than in Amsterdam because I have space to breathe in Portugal.
Yeah,
I can breathe, and I'm left alone. Like nobody knows me, nobody's coming to say hi to me, which I don't mind,
right.
but incessantly coming to say hi to me. I'm not bothered. There's no expectation that I should go to work. It's just all around more positive, especially towards trans people. It's widely more accepting than the Netherlands, which is a shock to me.
That is
No,
shocking.
nobody has said anything remotely transphobic. They ask my pronouns. I say she, her. That's it. It's the end of it.
Really? That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, yeah.
I've
Is
never been to
incredible.
Portugal. Sorry, go ahead, Lawrence.
No, please, Dana, go ahead.
Oh, I was. You said there it was a world of difference, and that you have space there, and I was wondering if that was literal space, which it sounds like it is, but also metaphorical space. I've never been to Lisbon, to Portugal or Lisbon. I've heard amazing things. Yeah, I would love to hear
Yeah.
more about what you like about it because the United States isn't a great place to be right now. So a
It's
lot of us are
interesting.
looking for
It's it,
places to go.
it's interesting you should say that because one of the things I've noticed about being here is the amount of Americans
Yes.
that are here.
Mm.
And speaking to a couple of them, they've said this is our refuge country.
Hmm.
They've left America and they've gone. Some of them left in 2016 when
Yes.
Trump first came to power.
Right.
And I think they saw the writing on the wall that when he lost the election, that was not the end of him.
Right.
So I think they just stayed. What's more interesting is to see Canadians who specifically specify that they're Canadian and not American.
Of course.
They'll wear Canadian bags, they'll have Canadian. It seems like Portugal is becoming a refuge for so many people. I
I
don't
don't.
think they counted on it.
Yeah, they have a relatively inexpensive golden passport there. I can't remember how much it is. It's expensive to me still, but I wanna say it's like 500K, where other
Yeah, I think
places in
it's
Europe, it's
500,000 euro to
and,
to
Wow.
oh, right, euro, not dollars, but, it's other places, I think it's like 2,000,000 in Ireland, so it's relatively inexpensive, and I have heard of a lot of Americans who have sought entry to the EU through Portugal's and have loved it, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
excuse me, how many languages do you speak? Can I ask that too? Like, can you speak Portuguese?
I
Or
can't speak Portuguese. No, it's a bit above my pay grade at the moment.
so
But
Turkish, English, Dutch,
Turkish, Dutch, German, um, and some Russian as well. Just because I worked with loads of Russian people,
right,
and I picked up conversationally here and there a few things where I can converse with them. Dutch was the most difficult to learn.
Really?
Um, yeah, really
That
difficult.
I
There's
I figure if you
nothing.
speak German and English, Dutch kind of looks like when I'm there, I'm like, if I squint my eyes, I could kind of figure out what they're trying to say here because it looks a little similar, but not so, huh?
It's more with German. You kind of read unless there's an accent. You say it how it looks.
right,
You know,
Mhm.
with some things. With Dutch, they'll have a silent J in a lot of words,
Uh,
and you can. There's loads of silent letters in a word, um, which can catch you off guard. And Dutch people are super unforgiving
right.
about
oh,
language. They are the bluntest people, the most direct people I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
When I first started speaking Dutch, I was having a conversation with a guy, and he stopped me mid-conversation, and he went, "You fucking butchered that," and then walked away, and just it didn't correct me. He just told me, "No, you were wrong," and gone. That was it. But
okay.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. How
Wow.
many languages do you speak?
Me
Sadly, the answer
one.
is only English. I studied a bit of German and French in high school and at university, but
Mm.
es tut mir leid, mein Deutsch ist nicht so gut. Wann ich hab ein Bier, mein Deutsch besser ist.
Lawrence taught
So
me a few select phrases in German, but mostly he taught me to say, Deutsch ist eine schwere Sprache, which got me kind of far. Yeah, I don't even know
right,
if I'm saying it right anymore.
right,
I got
and the
halfway to
classic
Spanish. Yeah, oh, sorry. Yeah,
Men is in Schwein. I taught you that one.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Men are
yeah.
pigs. It's the useful thing to know in any language.
Right.
It
And I
is,
had
it is.
it is. I had a German boyfriend in my 20s, and he taught me a couple of other phrases, but, I studied Spanish in school, and I lived in Spain in 2022 for no, 2002 for a few months, and I got, like, halfway there. I almost had kinda cracked into fluency, but I don't use it here, and so
Mhm.
it's like, feel too embarrassed here to try it if there are Spanish speakers because I don't wanna be that, like, middle-aged white woman who's like, "Yo hablo español." So when I travel, if I, go to a Spanish-speaking country and I'm not forced to use it, but it feels more natural to just try there, I can get around, but I
Mm.
certainly could never write in another language, and when I lived in Barcelona, I wanted to move to Barcelona, I love it there, and I was like I was in my I was about 30, and I was like, "I could never be fluent here. I could never speak this language or write in this language like a native. I just am too old at this point, and even if I stay here the rest of my life, I will never have like, I don't know that I could ever work in my field, and I couldn't be fluent, and I think that's one of to pivot back to you, I think that's one thing that amazes me about your writing is it's not only proficient, it's lyrical. It's like poetry in English, which I assume is not your first language.
No.
I assume Turkish is your first language, since you're from there. Is that true?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, Turkish is my first language. Like,
So, uh,
go
I'm
on.
sorry.
Sorry.
I was just gonna say, at what age did you start learning English, and how like, at what age did you, like, realize how, that you were a writer in English? Because I find it, uh, like I find very few writers who have the lyrical power, um, to
that
make
you
their
have.
prose sound like
Yeah.
poetry like you have. So the fact that you're a non-native English speaker just kind of blows my mind. It's amazing.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Um, so I moved to the Netherlands 11 years ago, and I didn't speak a word of English when I came. I knew, hello, how are you? I'm fine, thank you.
Oh my
All of
goodness.
these kind of things.
Mhm.
But until then, I didn't speak a word of English. But I could understand it. I could read it and understand it, but I couldn't
Hey.
verbalize it. I couldn't have a
Right.
conversation, but I could read it. And I spent a lot of my time as a child reading books in English, listening to English television shows or American television shows, and
Oh my gosh.
just kind of picking it up, like, I guess by like, what's the word, osmosis or something. It
Right.
Yeah.
was like settling into my head.
Oh
But
my gosh. Which shows? You have to disclose which shows taught you English. Do you remember?
The Simpsons,
Oh my
Yay.
god, that's
yeah,
our
The
favorite.
Simpsons,
That,
Buffy the Vampire Slayer as well.
Oh my gosh. Füsun,
that
we're gonna get along famously. Some of my favorite shows.
wow. So fluent in English and fluent in like irreverence. Just
Right.
the
So
The Simpsons is so full of cultural references too that are like my kids don't even get. Sorry, my dog was barking, so I got her a treat. Heading back to my little perch now. Even my kids don't understand some of the Simpsons references because their age, it's not hitting the right age group. So kudos to you for being able to pull English out of such a such a silly, brainy show.
The Simpsons is clairvoyant. I'll
Yeah.
maintain that
right.
The Simpsons can predict the future.
Right. Right.
Right?
And it's crazy. It's crazy how accurate, like accidentally accurate, they have been over the years.
Uh, if
You
they're
mean like
right,
Trump
then
being
Lisa
president?
Simpson is going to be president next because Lisa Simpson is president after Donald Trump drives the American economy into a ditch.
Wow. Yeah, 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 yeah.
I
So,
that
Crazy.
actually may that be prescient. Let's have the like smartest little girl in the class
right.
be the
Yeah.
next president. I'm all in favor.
I'm happy for that.
So
Wow.
I
So you
want to
learned you
ask
go on,
something
William.
if I can, Fuslin.
Yeah.
Mm.
So you posted something on notes on your note the other day that really, really resonated with me. And I'm going to read it to you here. You said, "Is it gauche to want something so badly and to tell the world about it? If it is, I don't care. I want to be a published writer. I want writer and woman to be the only titles I answer to. I want to give myself up entirely to art and womanhood. You might not understand that, and that's okay. Maybe it sounds pretentious, but art and femininity are my veins and arteries. They keep me alive." That
That sounds
is,
so nice when you read it.
it because it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Islam.
Thank you.
Can you talk to us about what that means to you and maybe what inspired you in that moment to write that?
I think it comes from battle. It comes from fighting. When I've been fighting to be considered a woman for 15 years of my life, which is actually exactly half of my life. And I fight for that title to be called a woman, to be acknowledged as a woman. And also with art and writing, the only thing I want in my life is for people to read my work and to take it seriously and not to see it as erotica or smut or porn or something like this. Just take it seriously and acknowledge that I wrote them and I wrote them with the intent to be a writer. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I
No, it
want
totally does.
I want to if I die and somebody says to me or somebody says to somebody, "What do you know about Füsun?" Well, he was a writer, then I will be in peace with myself, you know. Or if someone said to me, God forbid, he tried to be a writer, misgendered, and that
Right.
would be mortifying to me. So I'm trying to build a legacy of myself before I go because I don't know when that will happen. And art and writing is everything. Everything to me. It consumed me. Which sounds like an odd thing to say,
No, it
but
doesn't.
It does not.
but it consumes me, and the power of writing and the influence of other writers over my life and being lost in worlds, being able to make a world, and also conversely show people the world that I'm living in is one of the greatest things that comes from humanity, is our ability to show each other our different worlds. And if I can do that in a fluent and serious way, then I'll be a very happy woman.
My friend,
That's
That is beautiful.
I think you should be a very happy woman
Yeah.
because you are a magnificent writer.
Thank you
Yeah.
so
And
much.
You are already doing that. I mean,
absolutely.
we're talking to you from like not quite the other side of the world, but effectively the other side of the world, where different age groups are from different countries and eh, very different career paths and life paths. And like you have, I think other folks on this call too, you've immersed me in a world that I know little to nothing about. And I do want to read. Sarah has said, I've absolutely been blown away by the depth of her writing. Even in the few pieces you said written, but I think you mean read. Thank you, Sarah. Me too. When Lawrence told me you were coming on, I was like, no way.
Thank
um,
you.
may I ask sort of a nerdy process question? So sorry, I feel like I'm a little slow today. For those just joining, I'm a little under the weather. But I was about to say I like writing memoir too, but I'm going to take my lead from you and say I am a woman who writes memoir. I'm a memoirist. Um, and one thing that fascinates me about memoir is how you both need to be raw in the moment, but you need to have the objectivity to be a reliable narrator. I have one or two times when I have tried to write something that's very recent and raw. And while I loved getting the words down, I went back and read it after some time and was like, I wasn't a reliable narrator here because I was still hurting too much. Um, the story, the most recent one that you published, I'm gonna mess up the title. I'm the cock, I am the cunt. Can you say the title out loud? I'm sorry, or Lawrence, you have your laptop up, so I'm not,
I
but
think, Fuslin, it's I am cunt, I am cock, I am work,
I'm
right?
work.
Yes.
That was the third one, thank you. It felt like you literally wrote it minutes after the events of the story, but you also felt like such a reliable narrator. Like I ached with some of your words, and also I was like, "You're hurting, but you're objective about your hurting enough to be a reliable narrator." Um, so two-part question. One is that true? Did you really write it that quickly? And if so, how do you find the ability to be a reliable narrator when you're like kind of steeping in your own ache or pain of the moment?
A good question.
Thank you.
I I wrote the bones of that piece
Mhm.
pretty much straight after that night when I got home. And then I left it
Mm.
until the other day, actually. Because I have these stacks and stacks and stacks of notes and things that are written down. And usually what I do is I'll go back to them and I'll write something from them. So that piece there, I wrote the structure, the point, and everything in it, most of what's in it. And then I went back and then I thought, well, how do I feel about this now?
Mm.
How am I still feeling about this now? And how can I combine those two moods as being, in the moment, but also reflective? And it's basically I give it an incubation period
Gosh.
of
What Yeah, that makes sense. What, what parts came out later? What was kind of the realization that made you be able to come back to it and bring the story to life?
um well, I can tell you what the profanity came first.
Right. As it
That
sometimes does.
that
um
checks.
Mostly the reflection on how that is the way every night ends, and trying to convey that came later. The need to emphasize that this is actually a continuing cycle that happens all the time. That came later. I wanted to try and impress on people that this is every night,
Yes.
not just me, but for loads of other people.
Right.
Yeah,
That's what came later.
there was a sense of, while you were writing after a single incident that, there was a sense of continuity of this is life. There was one sorry, I said I was gonna be quiet today, Lawrence, and
No,
now
it's
I'm
okay.
talking, but I do have one more question before, on the same thread of one thing I loved about the story was, um, uh, I'm trying to even think of how to frame my question. You're both talking about, mm, um, the experience of the desire that these men come to you with, and kind of the rawness in their desire. But then you also there's a part that I quoted last night where you have a realization that some of them simply desire you, some of them desire to be you. And you're kind of marveling at I think there's a sense of self-hatred you sense in these men. And there's one man in particular, and I think it's the quote I pulled. I don't know. I sent like 6 quotes to Lawrence last night that I was like, "Oh my god, this is beautiful. This is beautiful." But you described the end of it as, he's showing you a sort of part of himself with a kindness of like, "I think I'm like you," and it repels you. You say it's like pink hornets stinging you. Um, how often does it happen that you feel like this is someone who is, like, inwardly transphobic because they hate themselves, and they aren't living authentically? Um, or and how d I'm not sorry, I'm making this a lot of questions, but, like,
Let her
talk about
answer.
that moment when you
That's enough.
realize
Yeah, that
sorry. Lawrence, go for it.
No, it's quite all right. It's okay. Um, I'll go back a little further
Mhm.
to answer that question. So when I lived in Istanbul, when I was about 17 or 18 years old, the only place trans women could go to have um, sexual relations outside of sex work were gay bathhouses and cottages. We didn't have our own spaces. We had to go to share spaces with gay men, essentially.
right.
And what I noticed in these places is that there was one demographic that stood out. There was self-hating homosexuals who were closeted and were not out, and they would go into these places saunas or cottages, there was only one cottage. It was a public toilet, like they all are,
Yeah.
And they would go into these places and they would have a sexual experience with somebody. And more often than not, at the end of that sexual experience, they start a fight. They'd get really angry and they'd get, you call it post-nut clarity now.
Right.
Mhm.
But they'd start fighting people and start being aggressive. So I first started noticing this pattern of behavior from way back then when they were doing these behaviors. It didn't translate as much in Amsterdam. But what I did notice is that I noticed people who were questioning their gender instead of questioning their sexual preferences. They were questioning their gender. Because I'd have clients who would come. I mean, in the literal sense, not in the sexual sense.
Right.
I'd have clients who would visit, and they would spend 20, 25 minutes asking me about HRT, asking me about surgeries, asking me about names, asking me about the legal processes.
Interesting.
And sometimes I noticed it was just curiosity because some of these men, a lot of them are tourists, they have no experience with trans women. They don't, it's really surprising how many people don't know a trans woman. Like,
Right.
they've never met a trans or a trans man or anybody.
To their knowledge.
But
to their knowledge.
to their knowledge, yes. But some of them would ask questions, and then over the more they would visit, they would come out of their shell a lot more, and it became perfectly apparent to me that they were dysphoric or they were questioning their gender, and for some reason or another, they thought the answer to it was to have sex with a trans woman. I don't understand the psychology behind that. I can't speak to that, but I started noticing that a long time ago. It's that I would have certain groups of people, usually very ordinary people, like people from who were in marriages mostly, or they had children in heteronormative relationships.
Right.
They were the ones who would do it. They would talk about it. So I don't know if that answers your question. I hope it does.
No,
But
it does. That is an interesting phenomenon to kind of what to fuck who you want to be. Like why? But that humans contain multitudes. What can I
they
say?
do, and we're all very multifaceted, and we all have things, and I think second to only therapists and psychiatrists, I think sex workers bear that more, because when people pay for time, they think that they have a license
Sure.
to open up completely.
Sure.
Whether that makes me uncomfortable, any sex worker uncomfortable, is irrelevant, but we have to sit and listen to it. And I think that comes into that feeling of being open, that need to express who they are. I think.
Yeah. I want to ask a question about the end of your recent piece, and
Mhm.
I mean, I want to acknowledge that I think it's fascinating, this topic of like how tricks come to you and kind of expect that they've paid for your time, and thus they get you as a counselor and their sexual fantasy, all kind of wrapped up into one. But at the end of your piece, the I'm cunt, I'm cock, I'm work. You're in the bathtub, right? And you're writing about sort of, well, what it came to for me was, it's like you're reclaiming your body. You're at the end of a night of work, you're coming back into your body, and it's a body. And tell me if I'm wrong, but it's a body that you've created for yourself. It's a home that you finally feel comfortable in, right? and that you're reclaiming it after a night of work. And maybe talk about that for a moment.
It's it actually came from a woman who had worked in the red light district for 40 years.
Wow.
From 20 till she was 60 years old. She
Yeah.
worked in the red light district. And she's now a union leader. She's a union organizer for sex workers.
Oh my God, you're
But
beautiful. That's amazing.
she told me this, she told me something one time. She said, at the end of every night or every shift or every client that you have, when you go home, spend 5 to 10 minutes just touching parts of your body and looking at parts of your body and observing parts of your body, and remember the autonomy that you have over yourself, and remember that you're not a commodity, that you're a human being, that you have flesh,
Yes.
and you have
Oh my
blood,
God.
and that you have all of this, and that you're not an item. You're not on a shelf. You have rights. You have everything that a human being deserves to have. You have it, and you have to remind yourself. So it's essentially an exercise in grounding more than it is reclaiming, but it helps me to remember things, because I get lost and I get dissociated, and I don't want to say out of body experiences, but I kind of, if it's been a heavy night, I will genuinely forget that I'm anything other than a sex worker.
Right.
And so I have to do it. I have to look, have to touch, have to feel, observe everything, every part of my body, because it's nice to remember that you're a human being, and you have independence and things like that, you have to forgive me my English sometimes when I'm trying to explain something. I
No,
translate it in my head, but it doesn't come out of my mouth properly.
Füsun, we're so delighted you're here, and you are so eloquent in written and spoken English that please
no
know that
apologies.
if we're quiet, it's only because I'm at least mesmerized by your answers, and so grateful to you for being here to talk with us. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
I
Thank
wanted to
you.
read a couple comments because people are weighing in. This is one of the most fun parts about going live to me, is hearing from everyone. And Füsun is helping so many people find themselves. That's amazing. And this conversation is blowing my mind wide open. Thank you. That's brilliant, because there are energy vampires out there. And anyone can, we can lose ourselves if we don't work at grounding. Disassociation is such, sorry, they're a little hard to read because they're tiny. Disassociation is such a strong defense mechanism. Yes, Füsun, your English is wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Wanted you to read the comments coming in case sometimes they fly by and it's easy to miss them.
Anna, do you have a Medium publication, don't you?
I do. I have a couple of them. Yeah.
I never was publishing on Medium,
Mhm.
but I was reading people on
Oh,
Medium,
I'm
and
honored.
my best friend was on Medium for a long time publishing. She is a sex worker too, and she's trans. We
Oh,
actually, like, we're from the same part of the same city,
oh, that's
and
amazing.
growing up and stuff. But
Did
sh but I used to read her work, and I used to see pink hair and pronouns
you know
quite
my
a lot.
publication? Oh my gosh! Wow. You never know who's reading your stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing. I actually was, when I, in thinking about what I wanted to ask you, I was like, should I should I ask her about raising gender nonconforming kids? I don't want to distract from talking about your writing. Um, but I do run that publication. It's on Substack now as well. most of my uh, I loved writing on Medium. I still write there, but you may have heard that there have been changes. A lot of writers have left and have moved to Substack, which is a big part of the reason why we're here today. And Substack just has so many more channels and so many more interesting voices like yours, honestly. Like, um, Medium prefers a certain um, uh, quieter type of writer, I will say, lately.
This is something that I knew a girl who was also working in the red light district
Hmm.
who was on Medium, and I was observing her writing and reading it, silently as kind of like a silent reader. And I remember saying to her one day, I said, the stuff you're writing about won't stand on Medium. They won't have it,
Oh.
And she said, no, no, I'll be okay. I'll be okay. She managed to piss off a publication editor
Mm,
there
okay.
who was well, I know who she is, but I'm not going to name her. But
Okay.
she essentially, he was, from what I understood and from what I observed, she was quite in with the top brass of Medium. He was like right at the top, and she kind of had a monopoly on a lot of publications. And so my friend, well, I say a friend, she's someone I know just by association,
Sure.
and he didn't toe the line, and she read an article that basically exposed a lot of things about this particular publication, and it was all within, all in good sport. It was all just a criticism. He was
Hmm.
banned from Medium, and they removed her account, and they called her a catfish or something. Said that she was impersonating somebody, and I
Oh.
was just. But I said to her, I said, if you do that, if you don't toe the line, they're gonna get rid of you, and they did, and that was kind of that was that made me kind of shy away from Medium a bit, and I was like, my work is not gonna have a home here, so I can't
Right.
be writing,
Heck, even my work about relationships and dating would almost never get boosted. Other stuff would. Um, so yes, writing. They're prudes. Is the I mean, like, sorry, I'm a boost nominator over there, and I shouldn't be coming out with negative words, but they if you can't walk into, like, the office at a bland office space and talk about your topic, they're probably, especially in 2025, not going to boost it. They've stopped boosting stories on pink hair and pronouns. They used to be really supportive about content around parenting gender nonconforming kids, but of course, what could be a more controversial topic in the US right now than trans kids, which is just nuts to me because, like, my God, like, talk about an like, infinitesimal number of people who are bearing the weight of, so much ire from the other political side. But Substack is not like that, so yay, we're all here.
Right.
it's so good. It's so good. Yeah, yeah. I
You were
think I
one of the
think
Oh, sorry.
I
This is
think
the problem
Medium.
with 3 on a call. I'll be quiet.
I think Medium is looking for that tax break from
Right.
showing their DEI, and they're monitoring their content closely
Right.
to be rewarded at a later date.
Yeah. I
You know.
I tried to write something once, Dana. I'm sure you remember. I wrote an article kind of on like realizing that I was a bottom. Kind of
Yeah.
because I'm sure you're aware. In the gay male community, there's even still a shame around being a bottom, right? And kind of owning that you are a bottom. And so I wrote this article that was not that explicit, but maybe a little explicit. And Dana was like, "Oh, honey, they're never going to publish that article. They're never going to boost that."
I mean, it'll publish, you can publish anything, but um, without a boost, the it's not gonna make money, and it's probably just gonna languish. 3 people will see it, but I can't quite figure out how Substack chooses to elevate content to new people because Fusen, you were one of the first people I remember seeing. I mean, it's Letters from a Prostitute I only joined 2 months ago, but it was Postcards from a Whore, so it definitely jumped off at I was like, "Well, I'm definitely following her." And so you, uh, for whatever reason, they were like, that this is what you're going to like, not knowing a lot about
Right.
me. So I do tend to get a lot of queer voices because I've posted a few of the pink hair and pronouns stories over there, but there's certainly a big difference between, we should honor our kids' genders and Postcards from War, but I'm very glad that they did, that they were like, "Dana's gonna like this." So,
It's
um,
funny.
Well, you changed the name recently, as Dana
Yeah.
just alluded to. What made you change the names?
I think a lot of my work was getting misinterpreted for something that it wasn't.
Mm,
And I got a lot of hate mail and requests and stuff. It's not me saying I'm acquiescing to them, but they were saying quite a well-known Substack writer recommended my publication to on a note. And one of the first comments with the first likes is like, "I'm not liking an article, a publication with that name because I don't want the algorithm to show me loads of nudes, as like suggested things
oh,
like that."
fair.
mm,
And and I was like, "Yeah, no, that's fair enough." So maybe if I made it a little bit more PG in a sense, it would be a lot more better received. And
right.
it's worked out to be true. Like, I've had a significant growth in subscribers since I changed it. So it's all a game of chess, really, isn't it? Like you're just making moves to try and get your work viewed and seen. Um, so yeah, that's the reason I changed it because people were getting the wrong impression,
Right.
and also conversely, I was getting a lot of what we call them trans chasers. It's usually cisgender men who are fetishize trans women, and I was getting a lot of them sliding into my DMs and like asking silly questions, which I won't repeat here,
Right.
and like, are you top or bottom? Things like that, and like, so yeah, it was getting a bit out of hand, so I kind of changed it and mellowed it out a little bit, and topped the publication off with the most profane piece I've written so far.
And one of the most lyrical. I mean,
Like,
there's so many quotes and metaphors and turns of phrase that you use in that article. It's incredible. Can I ask you about another article?
sure.
So, in April, I think maybe on your mother's birthday, you posted an article. I think the title is "My Beautiful Transphobic Mother," and uh, it was such a powerful piece about your relationship with your mother and how
Uh,
she was kind of simultaneously like your role model for how a beautiful woman moved in the world, but also the relationship that you had with her, which was not supportive, to say the least. Are you comfortable talking about that article with us?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I wrote that article because for some reason or another, I feel compelled to send my mother a birthday card every year. We
Mhm.
haven't spoken for 15 years, my mother and I. And I feel compelled to do it. And it's more for me to say, you know what, I'm still alive, you know. And I always write, if you don't get a birthday card from me next year, I'm not alive. I'm not here anymore.
Wow.
Um, because I don't know what's going on in her conscience. She's very, very stubborn and very, you know, when she makes a decision, I mean, she's the kind of person that if she tells you a black cat is white, the black cat's white. She's that kind of very very domineering, very kind of like, you know. So, but I also know inside that she does have a tender part of her,
Right.
which I guess in a sense I'm trying to appeal to. Because I don't know if she secretly feels a lot of guilt and is too proud to say, or maybe she doesn't. But it's for me to just keep the door ajar instead of closed completely. I think she, out of everybody in my family, knew who I was before I knew who I was. Um, it was, it's not hard. I mean, it should have been apparent to everybody, really, in hindsight, when I look back. Like she'd say to me, for example, to go get my twin brother because he's playing soccer outside, and I'd go, "Ahmed, whoopoo!" And she'd just be sit there and like, like I think she knew, but she didn't admit it to herself. She was not admitting it to herself.
Right.
But I absolutely admire her as a woman because she had 10 children,
Wow.
and
2 sets of twins, right?
2 sets of twins. Yeah, yeah. I'm from one set, and there's
Right.
another younger set. And she my father was always away working. He used to work on the fishing boats, and then he got an injury working on the fishing boats, and then he went to work on the taxi to drive the taxi car.
Right.
So he was never there. He was always really working a lot. So she had to deal with that all of herself. I'm not saying she always did things right, but she somehow, almost all of us are still here,
Right.
and
10
we're
kids, holy cow.
and doing pretty well. So I admire her, but it's more I admired her beauty more than anything because when I was younger, it was certainly the case that she was probably the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. She commanded everything. She walked into a room, people looked at her. People were enthralled by her, and that kind of fascinated me and and really 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 I don't know. Yeah, no, it fascinated me. That's what I'm trying to say. But on the flip side, when I came out, he was vicious. Just the hands down the
Right.
most transphobic person I've ever come across in 15 years. It was horrendous, horrendous. How horrible. My father, usually it's the other way around, right?
Right.
But my father was just sat in the corner, like he had like a more mild mannered. This sounds like a contradiction in terms, but a mild mannered hatred for what I'd become. He didn't say nothing. He just sat there, like just pretending it wasn't happening.
Right.
But she just went straight for the jugular. She was like, no.
Yeah.
First she laughed and thought I was
Ouch.
joking, and then I said I wasn't joking, and then she 10 minutes of just absolute, like, both barrels, and then she said, "Get out." Like, she was just like, "Go."
Right. There's another article that you've written where you talk about that moment where you kind of walk into your family home, sort of, you've decided to go full time, right? You're presenting as a woman, and you walk into the family home and she immediately flies at you and is
pretty much.
screaming at you,
Pretty much.
and then she
Screaming,
kicks
yeah.
you out, and that's it. Like you never go home again, I think, after that. Is
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I should have added, she laughed because she thought it was a joke.
right.
She thought I was just like having a joke. And then, yeah, she just started screaming. And I'll always remember my twins, my twin brothers, they were just looking at me like, what's going on? Like, why are you going? Like, why are you leaving? And my twin brother as well was because he knew before everybody they did, in a literal sense.
Right.
He knew before I came out because he'd caught me wearing a dress one time. He'd seen it, and he said to me, he said, "You must promise me you'll never do this again." Because he said, "You're like," he had kind of not a good intention, but he had foresight, and he
Right.
said, "Your life will be very, very, very difficult if you carry on doing this. Pretend it doesn't exist." He just really drummed that in my head. Pretend you're not this way, you know. And when I came out, he looked so, so disappointed in me.
Hmm.
He looked at me as if to say, like, "How could you do this to me?
Right.
Like, how could you betray me like this? How could you, like, you're not my sister, you're my brother." And so I left, and then he gave me a load of stuff, and then I went on my way through different places, different stages in my life. And
Right.
a couple of years ago, me and my brother actually reconciled. You
Oh,
know,
good.
we managed to. He left Turkey. He went to Germany, and he adopted a more enlightened view of the world.
Right.
Um, and kind of was like, "I'm very, very sorry. I didn't. I did. It's because I didn't understand.
Oh,
I couldn't understand."
Right.
Um, which, in a sense is very hard to. It's hard for people to understand. Which is purpose of why I write, is because I want people not to understand just about transgender, um, being queer or being trans, but also being a sex worker. Even being in recovery is a big part of my work.
Right.
And how actually all of these society has linked together.
Right.
Sex work and addiction has been linked. Being trans and being a sex worker is linked.
Yeah.
It's all of these kind of things that I'm trying to link together to show the world that this is how society has been created, and it's been designed. It's all by design. That addicts aren't given help. They've been told to make their own money, and the only way they can make money is through sex work, or worse, criminality.
Right.
Or trans women, especially in Turkey, it was the case that a trans woman cannot get a job. They are legally allowed to refuse you to work
Right.
oof.
on the basis that you are trans. That is their discretion. They can be like, "No, I don't want
Right.
a trans woman working for me." So alternatively, the only way to go is to be a sex worker.
Is that a thing that, not to get into politics here, but is that a thing that has happened recently under Erdogan, or is that something that has always been the case because Turkey is a Muslim country? Or
So I've only lived for 7 years. The rest of that time, Erdogan has been leader.
right.
So he's been leader a long time. 23 or 24 years he's
Yeah.
been president.
Right. Yes. Trump
So
is taking note.
yeah, I'm sure he is.
Turkey's further down the path of authoritarianism than we are.
But he So what I can see as a person is just from that experience of being trans while he's been president. But where I grew up in Istanbul, in an area, it's called Tarlabaşı, and it's I'm not exaggerating when I say 60 to 70% of the trans population in Turkey lives in that one area.
Really?
Because they migrate there, because it's a safe space, because it's a lesser developed area. It's where the Turkish government has deliberately put people that they consider to be undesirable.
Oh.
So it's not just trans women. As a footnote, trans men are absolutely fine. They don't say nothing. They don't say nothing about trans men. They're fine with that
Because
of the misogyny.
right,
It's
misogyny trumps homophobia, or queerness or queerphobia, transphobia.
Yeah, so it's they're fine with that, but also in its area they have Kurds, Romani travelers, Greeks, Armenians, the people of that descent in this one area. I don't know how we ended up there, because my parents were good Turks, and loyal Turks, and so I don't know how we got there. But trans women, I grew up around trans women.
Right.
They were all around me. They used to, I used to be put in. I'm going on a tangent, but I am coming back to your
No,
point.
that's good.
So,
Tangents are our
everything is
favorite.
good.
but we used to be bathed in a tin bath in the street with hot water, and trans women would come past and they would play, they would come say hello, or they would play with us, and I saw them and I was immersed with them, and I understood. But then as I got older, I wondered to myself why there were so many trans women in this area, and I learned it was because their parents had kicked them out. Their families didn't want to know anymore, so they come to this area because that's where trans sex workers work, and the only work you can get as a trans woman is to be a sex worker in Turkey. So it's it kind of just congregated into this one area.
Right.
So Erdogan is responsible for that, pretty much, because it increased ever more under him. But I would only say he's partly responsible, and actually the attitude is towards Turkish people. I mean, Turkey is the most dangerous country in Europe and that part of the world to be a trans person,
Right.
hands down. If you look at any graph of Europe, if Western Europe is all in green. The further east you go, it goes from orange, and it just gets to a deeper red. And
Right.
Turkey is where it's deepest. It's more dangerous than Russia,
Wow.
which is a huge thing. It's more dangerous than Chechnya.
Wow.
Which is insane to me.
Yeah.
But that's the Turkish people are happy to have it that way, because they have the older generations and instead of the younger generations. They are of the belief that we are mentally ill. And so because we are mentally ill, in inverted commas,
Right.
they think that we are a lesser, because they don't understand mental illness either.
Right.
So it goes into the two. We're mentally ill. Worse, we're defying God. That's the other argument that they use. We defy God. God has chosen us, and basically we're giving him the middle finger and saying, no, this is not what we are. So we're everything. And they've also brought into the horrendous tropes, the allegations that have been leveled against trans women as, being immoral, hurting children, influencing children to they use the term mutilate themselves. And, so they have all of this in mind and they carry that with them, and that reflects on us. They show their hatred towards us at every turn because that's all in their head. They don't see a human being anymore. They see a problem.
Right.
The humanity has been taken out of us, and now they see it as a problem. So we're not so much a pest or an annoyance to them, or just people that we're there. We're a problem that needs to be sorted out because we are a threat to everybody else.
Wow.
That's what's in their head.
Right.
And that goes right up into the upper echelons of politics. It's prevalent in the police. If a trans woman gets murdered, they don't really investigate it.
Right.
And that's why that's, I mean, a really long way of telling you why I don't live there anymore.
No, it's a great insight, and it's something that I think transcends borders, right? Because I think that same mindset is taking hold in the United States, and like in
Absolutely.
Trumpism, at least, that's the thinking. That it's a problem to be solved, right? Which is how we get into Holocaust-like situations and how we get
Yeah.
into dehumanizing people.
You can draw parallels. You can,
Yeah.
with the Holocaust and fascism. Everything that fascism does, he is trying to implement.
Yeah.
He's influencing systems of education. He's defunding education that doesn't toe the line.
Right.
He's ignoring the justice system. He's doing all of these things, and that's like something out of Mein Kampf. It is the playbook of every authoritarian. Erdogan does it. Putin has done it.
Yeah.
Trump, because Trump, pardon my French, he gets a hard on over these people.
Right. Absolutely. He idolizes them. He would. Yes.
And he used the word mutilate as well. The executive order, the first one about, I think it says against the mutilation of children. I want to say it's actually in the title. I'd have to go back and read it, but it's certainly, I call out in the story I wrote about it back in January that he uses the word mutilate 14 times, mutilation or mutilate, in that executive order. And it's interesting you jumped on that word too, because it's such a guttural word. Mutilate is like, ugh. Of course that's wrong. So the words matter, and
that's why he uses it.
Yeah.
That's why he uses it. Any word he uses, I think people give him. I mean, the man is an idiot, and
he didn't write. Let's be clear.
Right.
But
everyone, you can see that too, right? In Europe, you all know that he's an idiot.
I mean, yeah, like he's, he's an idiot, but the people who are around him are very, very manipulative and very clever. And very, very adept in the art of manipulation and fear-mongering and causing moral panic. So every speech he does, when he writes his things on that fucking, that dollar store social network platform that he has, like every word that is capitalized, someone has told him to capitalize that.
Right.
He doesn't. It may look like he's doing it while he's like eating a Big Mac at 3 a.m., but he's not. So he's got somebody reading through it and is saying, "That's not shocking enough. You need to do this. You need to do that." And it's probably that blonde woman, that his press secretary or something.
Caroline.
Right. Caroline
that hideous, horrible.
Yes.
She's. Yeah. So he's really the puppet.
Absolutely.
He's really the puppet.
Glad that is knowable. I did see we got a question about the green to red. I believe what you're referring to there is the map of trans safety. right? That a green country or a green state in the United States denotes that it's a safe place for trans people to be, and the red
Right.
means it's dangerous, and there's a
Correct.
gradient.
Yeah.
So like
Amsterdam would
Well,
be green, right?
yeah,
For
yeah.
the
So
Netherlands.
so for example, Massachusetts would be green, but then Alabama or Florida would
Right.
be dark red.
Yeah. Dark
So
red.
it's that kind of that's the way of measuring it.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. I think it's a shame we have maps like that, to be honest.
It
Yeah.
is.
So
It's a
it's
crying
useful
shame.
too. It's a shame they have to exist. Yeah. I'm in a very green state. I'm in Washington, like the West Coast Washington,
Right.
and Lawrence used to live here, but he's now in a very red state.
I'm in a very red state now, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're in was it Indiana?
Indiana, yeah,
Yeah.
in the Midwest. So I hope it's okay, Füsun, that we're a couple minutes longer maybe than we said we were going to be.
Perfectly fine by me.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you about as we kind of wrap up is, and you and I chatted about this a little bit in our text messages. I read your work, and what I see is somebody who fundamentally loves life, right? Who loves being alive, and who, maybe you could say, in spite of everything, still finds joy. And I want to talk to you about that. I want to hear what you have to say about that. I've said it before. There are notes that you've done where you're on the beach, right? And I just imagine you sort of like wearing this billowy white, dress and spinning around in the sunshine with a big sun hat. And I feel like that's kind of fundamentally who you are also, right? Is a joyful person.
Yeah, because I think, as I said to you yesterday, is that I want to live as happy and as best as I can, so I can continue having the experiences that I'm having,
Yeah,
and being clear-headed. You know, that's the most important thing for me, is to be clear-headed and being able to live and actually recognize my own happiness, instead of just, thinking, I might be happy.
right,
No, being saying it definitively that I am happy is a good thing for me. Like, because I struggled with opiate addiction.
right.
I was addicted to heroin for a long time. Um, and I've been clean for several years, but during that time, I don't have any memory of how I was really feeling, or anything like that. But coming out of that, the point is that coming out of that and cleaning myself up, and living a bit more sober. Though I'm not, I can't. I'm not sober, but I am clean from hard drugs. But
Right.
that kind of realization that life is actually quite good, and life is actually, there's a lot of good people in the world.
Right.
It's just good people don't make good news. So when you're reading the news,
Yeah.
you'll only see bad things, or you hear controversial things, because someone who's, helped an old lady across the road, or somebody who's, helped someone take their groceries to their car, is not going to make front page news.
Right.
But it's there, and to be able to see that, and to see humanity, and see the good in humanity, and um that's what makes me happy to be alive. It makes me happy to be alive, to know that despite everything, despite people trying to grind people down into nothing, to carcasses, then trying to make them emotional deserts, there's still people around who are fundamentally good people.
Yes.
And it's not in the minority that they'd have you think that it is. And so to meet those people every so often, and to be around people who are happy and who are kind. That makes me happy. And if I can be happy and I can look like I love living life and actually love living life, I could give that same hope to somebody else.
Yes.
And then the cycle hopefully will continue. It's like a contagion. Yeah.
Yes.
Like
Right.
it just continues and continues and
Right.
continues.
A good virus, a virus of
Right.
happiness.
Correct.
Yes.
Contagion
Correct.
we all want. There was something really beautiful of him going through the notes. Oh, Füsun, you are a beautiful woman and human being. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Didn't want you to miss that one. Oh, Kitty.
That's the
Right.
beautiful. It's
We
only a crowd is
I
so kind, so
think,
lovely.
oh, I feel like we're one day gonna be like, um, we knew you when. Like
right.
Lauren said this, and I agree that like we're gonna have this live and be like, wow, New York Times bestselling author Füsun Aydın was on our little podcast here
I'll buy
on
you a
her way
holiday
out,
home in Acapulco. I promise.
right?
I
Right.
promise.
You heard it here, folks. She promised.
Oh my gosh.
We do have one question though that we'd like to ask people as we're wrapping things up. And Dana, I'll hand it to you because this is really Dana's question.
This might be a tricky one because you are both from a different age generation and a different country, but we always do like to ask folks about what is the most Gen X song of all time. And
But
if you have
for
it,
you, it might be your favorite song, right? Or something
yeah,
that you feel powerful and transformative. But you know, we're Gen Xy, and so we like to ask about Gen X songs.
Oh, I'm gonna quickly give you three because I couldn't
Okay.
settle on one.
Okay, good. Yeah, we love
perfect.
it.
Number one is Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Number two is Ride a White Swan by T-Rex.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
And number three, I think, is just at the other side of the border of Gen X,
Okay.
which is The Supremes You Can't Hurry Love.
Oh yeah. That is an excellent one.
So three. Yeah.
Excellent.
I
Thank
love it. I love it. We'll find links to those and put them in the little write up for this live when we post it. I don't want to say goodbye, to be perfectly honest. This has
I know.
been such a great conversation, and I feel like we could talk to you for hours about anything under the sun. So
You've
I hope
been
you'll come back and join us at some point in the future.
absolutely. You've been so fantastic and so kind and so lovely. Thank you so much for hosting me. It's been a great pleasure.
It's been our pleasure too, Füsun.
It has
So
been an honor. There's so many comments coming in of like, do it again. This was so great. Yeah, I want to talk to you about being a woman on the internet. If we another time of like how to be taken seriously as a woman writer when you're writing about subjects that are titillating, so to speak.
right.
Stay away from Grinder. That's
Right.
True. Stay away from the other side of Substack. I know I have limited experience with that, but for another time.
Yeah, of course. It'd be my pleasure.
All
Great.
right.
Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. Thank you
No,
for coming and
thank
being
you for being here.
absolutely. Yes,
It
we've
was
loved
wonderful.
it. Thanks to everyone.
Yeah, love you guys. Mean it. We'll talk again. We'll be here again tomorrow, and hopefully, Füsun, we will have you on another time.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. Take
All
care.
right. Bye. Mwah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.